instructor and athletic trainer, U.S. Navy, educational lecturer and presenter to military, civilian populations on various on-site programs. What people also don't understand is when you serve in the Navy, it doesn't just mean that you're an actual officer. There are actual civilians in the Navy and the military that have different positions. That could be a dentist, it could be an eye doctor, an optometrist. There are different positions. That is the position that he served. He instructed, managed, and evaluated military commands in preparation for deployment. He administered health fitness assessments to individuals in military commands, partnered with military commands to create instructional training programs. This is what I'm talking about. Now, with regards to checking, I know it was mentioned earlier, of not checking the box to contact previous employers, and what I will say is, I have heard it's pretty common practice in the education world that when you are searching for a new job, you don't want to let that job know that you are looking for another job. You don't want to get, because you might not get that job. So you don't want to tell them, hey, go call up my old job right now that I'm currently working at. If I don't get that job, I'm screwed. But go ahead and call and check those references. I can tell you right now that I didn't, as a board member, and I'm an employer for the superintendent, Dr. Summers never notified me as a board member that he was looking for a different job. So, the absolute ridiculousness of this whole thing, the fact that I just find it appalling. I was told yesterday morning that, or Monday morning, that it was shared that Dr. LaDouceur had to turn in his badge and keys to the district or to site level or whatever, because he was being accused that if he kept his keys and badge, they were afraid he was going to come into the district building and take stuff in here. So now we're accusing somebody of being a thief. This is absolutely insane. He has served as a teacher this whole year, doing an amazing job. He's stepped up in a time of challenging times in our district as a teacher, as a principal, as everything else in his resume, that he has an extensive background to step up to serve the students, the staff, and the families in this district, and this is how he's being treated. I'm appalled. And with regards to, it's absolutely ridiculous. This right here was dropped off at his house, so now we're stalking people at their houses. Time to go to the press about this. As teachers and sitemen, we are glad to know he stepped down. He did not step down. He was pushed out. Pushed out. It's absolutely disgusting that they are doing this to him. It says, we are grateful he will not be the interim superintendent. Way to go, Jeff Toby. That's dropped off at his house. That is unacceptable. This is so wrong. We voted for him on April 23rd to be the interim superintendent, and then we removed him with nothing. No reason. It was shared with me multiple different reasons from other individuals in the community that were hearing everything, that it's because, his resume, it's not real, it's lies. So now we're listening to the rumorville versus actual reading what was submitted a year ago. And it was actually also vetted by the principal at the school, who does everything through our district office. HR checks everything, checks backgrounds, checks references. This is absolutely ridiculous. I cannot believe that he even has to have this put on the agenda. I've heard that there's so many accusations out there about him, that he's somehow an angry person, that he has anger issues. I've seen that. That's disgusting. That's absolutely a lie. I can't believe somebody who has been to work every single day. I've seen this calendar. Everybody has seen this calendar up here. He comes every day, 7 a.m., gets here, leaves late, works his butt off, and this is how he's being treated. the things that have been shared with me really concern me, because I'm just wondering if there is something else that is going on here with this witch hunt. I've been shared that he never wanted to step down, that he was basically threatened, if you don't step down, we'll make it harder for you. That we will not pay you. That was mentioned to me. We won't pay you for the rest of the month. So that's how we treat our employees in this district that haven't done anything wrong. No justification, no breaking policy, no breaking procedure, no breaking the law. It was also shared with me that this is the integrity that I see here. It was shared last couple of days that he was concerned about a month and a half ago about a situation at one of our schools with a student bringing a gun to a school. He had worked with the police department, followed up with them. It was shared somehow through the district that they were going against the policy to not do expulsion hearing. And so, being the man that he is, to make sure we need to follow policy, what is going on? Again, he's the associate to the superintendent. He does not have full authority in that role, but he did what he was supposed to do and reached out to one of our fellow board members, President Jeff Tobey, to get clarification, to understand, hey, this seems concerning to me. I want to bring it to your attention. And the follow-up that I heard back was, oh, we took care of it. We circled back. The policy was when a student brings a gun to a school, my understanding is that they're supposed to have an expulsion hearing. That expulsion hearing was pushed off, and instead student went to virtual learning without bringing to the board, not following our policy, not following our procedure. But here's a man who was concerned with how this was going, and again, he wants to follow procedure, policy, law. So there just seems to be a lot of witch hunt right now on this person who has done nothing wrong but try to help our district, help our students. I know it's been mentioned on social media that he emailed me specifically his resume. I will say we've had resumes emailed to us before by different employees. We get emails, we get consulting firms that reach out to us, we get so many things sent to us as board members. So I just think that's ridiculous as well, because that's basically saying that any employee in this district, if they want to justify by, hey, I want to apply for a bigger position, or I want to send in my resume to update it, send it into the district to see if there's ever any positions that become available, that opens that door. So is that the message we're saying? Don't send us resumes anymore, because we don't, you'll be questioned like this right here. I'm absolutely appalled. And with regards to how he was treated and how he was pushed out, we again had a vote April 23rd out in the open for him to be the interim superintendent. The district had his full resume and application for almost a year, never had any issues until now. And April 23rd, we voted to make him the interim superintendent and start contract negotiations. So in his mind, he's like, okay, let's start getting ready. Let's start preparing, because as soon as Dr. Summers is over with his contract on June 12th, he's ready to step up. But until then, he has no power. He can't make decisions yet until Dr. Summers' contract is up. And then to find out on Sunday morning, a phone call that he receives of, you need to go quietly because we've decided to go with different leadership as a board, meaning I had no idea this was happening, but as a board, we're going with different leadership. And, we're concerned because, there's cabinet members that don't want you. And again, this is said through the community, through everybody, it's out there, it talks. And I have a problem with that, because When we were interviewing for the associate superintendent position, we had 3 candidates. During the time that they were waiting, Dr. Ryan LaDouceur was waiting. And this is a teacher who came and applied, stepped up, coming into this position in challenging times. And 2 cabinet members walked up to him and said, "Oh, so you're just the teacher." That's how we treat people who want to apply, who want to step up, who want to help the students and the staff and the families. That's not the types of people that I want serving in this district. I can tell you that right now, because that doesn't show me anything about their character. That's the first experience he had. First experience coming up here. That's how he was welcomed. So to get that phone call on a Sunday, that they're gonna schedule some special meeting on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. to basically push him out, make him resign, say, "Hey, do this, or we're gonna make it difficult for you and your family. You won't get paid the rest of the month to June 30th. How is that okay to do? How is that okay? This is incredibly wrong, the way that he has been treated. I'm telling you right now, I've never done an executive session with an employee like this out in the open since being on this board, and that right there takes courage, because he knows he's done nothing wrong. I know he's done nothing wrong, and yet he's willing to put it out in the open so everybody can hear, because he knows he's innocent, but it still is probably very painful and hurtful because of the way that people have been treating him. So I'm going to apologize publicly to Dr. Ryan LaDouceur and his wife and his entire family, because this is not how you should be treated. So if there's any other further questions I have after letting the rest of the board speak, I'll let you know.
Mrs. Ewing, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Mrs. Visitainer, Mrs. Siegel, is there any questions that are we questioning any of the recommendations that came over with regards to Dr. LaDouceur, the raving recommendations, his excellent job history? Are we questioning that within this? Because the application certainly came over with lots of letter of recommendations, video showing he got awards and so forth. Are we questioning any of that? Because that wasn't my understanding that was the purpose of this item.
Mr. Tobey, members of the board, Mrs. Ewing, no, we're not questioning any of that. Subsequently, as I said, there was a board meeting in North Wasco County School District, which is available online. It was about the same time he applied. He filed a complaint, and the board investigated it, and I believe on March 14th, 2024, which is about the same time he applied here, the complaint was rejected. It's not having merit. That's the only other information I have to give you.
Okay.
But no, we are not. What is in his resume, his resume and his application, I don't believe the district is questioning that.
Well, we're questioning Dr. LaDouceur's employment history is what on the agenda. So that's, the resume is his employment history.
Well, Mr. Tobey, members of the board, Mrs. Rooks, we put that on the agenda because at the time we thought it was going to be an executive session. As you know, I prefer more than less, so we just put it on there that if that came up, which it now has, that we would be able to talk about it in executive session. Now we're having an open session and we're talking about it.
Mrs. Visitainer, any other difference?
President Tobey, Mrs. Ewing, no, we were not questioning that information.
Okay. So just wanted to make that clear that we're not questioning his integrity with regards to his job history. Going back to the note of no contact to former employer, Do we have, and the way that we fill out applications, so let me start with this, sorry. Let me start with I know, for instance, I worked a short time in human resources, and when we would look at applications and if they checked, the applications always have a question of, have you ever been convicted of a felony? If that person answers yes and gives descriptions, we could have discussions on whether we would hire that person, but they were still honest. But then if that person said no and we did a background check, it would be determined, and it found that they do in fact have one, then we could opt to not hire that person due to law, because you can't hire somebody who's lied on an application. So I know that there's things like that out there that's in law, and then I know that we have certain policies, I believe, about if there's any document, anything given on an application that is determined that's inconsistent or lying or that type of thing. So, because you mentioned it, Ms. Siegel, going back to the no contact former employer, was there, because I'm still kind of, I'm still not understanding why we're having this conversation. He has a continuing contract with us. I understand he didn't sign the other addendum, but we're not questioning his history. I remember there was concerns about something he filled out in his application that might go against our policies, which could potentially mean that there are grounds to terminate if we decided, but I don't even know if that's been brought forward. So can you offer some clarity around that?
President Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Ewing, I think I understand your question, so just stop me if I seem to be not answering it. Just clarify for the record, his application, as is usual with district applications that for somebody that has experience, runs 18 pages long. Page 18 of 18 allows the district to do any investigations it wants. It gives the district consent, but he did check no about contacting his former employer. His 3 references were another principal in North Wasco School District, North Wasco County School District in Oregon. Someone, I believe it's someone in the George Fox University, and then the 3rd one was someone at Oregon City School District, Director of Operations. And I talked with Mrs. Bennett, and she said she contacted those 3. She did not contact the district administration at North Wasco County. I did contact them, and Dr. LaDouceur resigned from there. I did talk to Dr. LaDouceur about what his conditions were at his employment. He said he filed a complaint against the superintendent. He didn't say, but I have since found out from watching the board meeting, it was found to be no cause to the complaint. And then he took the rest of the year off on FMLA. That's all I have. Did that answer your question as to what I know?
Yes, thank you for giving that information. So, Mrs. Vicentino, correct me if I'm wrong, do we have a spot on our applications where employees are asked, have they ever resigned in lieu of termination?
Mr. Toby, Mrs. Ewing, yes, we did.
Okay, was there concerns that we were not aware of that ahead of time, or were there concerns that that was the case in Dr. LaDouceur's scenario?
President Toby, Mrs. Ewing, he didn't check that he had resigned in lieu of termination, so there was no reason to be concerned at the time reviewing his application.
If I may add, Mrs. Ewing, he gave us his reason for leaving the North Wasco County School District. that he was to move, he was going to move. I asked Mrs. Bennett today what reason he gave, and he said, yes, she said, yes, that was the reason he gave, that he was going to move. When I asked him personally, he said he had filed this complaint against his superintendent.
Okay, so but on the record right now, it just shows that he resigned. It does not reflect, and we didn't find any evidence to make any determination that he resigned in lieu of termination, correct?
Correct, Mrs. Ewing.
All right, so then that brings me to my next thing. Well, just a notation. Mrs. Vicentiner, we have thousands of individuals that we're hiring constantly, it seems like, right? So do all, can you just run through really quickly, because it was brought up that everything always goes through HR. When we're hiring for someone at the school sites, can you just walk me through what that process is, just so the full board understands and the community understands, so they understand what the oversight is on that?
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Yeah, so when applications come through a centralized application system called Frontline, and schools through the support of the Human Resources Department post the positions. Once the positions are posted, the administrators have the ability to access the applications, contact the applicants, schedule interviews, and make their selection. From that standpoint, once they want to make, before they're able to make a recommendation and we move forward at the schools or the hiring managers, because it's not always schools, will conduct a reference checks and follow through with the references. And then they can submit a recommendation to us to make the offer. What my team does, still my team. What they do is they review all the information that is submitted. They make sure that we have the references that are submitted along with the application. We have all the information we need, and they kick off a background check, and then we start working through the process to make an offer. The HR department does not do typically the references, except for instances with administrator hirings. That can be an exception, and we will support that if need be, but we also take the information that the administrators and the hiring managers submit to us and just make sure it's complete.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for walking me through that, just so I can fully understand that. Okay, and so back to Ms. Siegel. So we're not questioning his previous background. We're not questioning his application. There's just a concern noted about not contacting the former employer, but it seems like we've been given at least the scenario for that. And so he helped with the associate to the superintendent position. So where are we with him with the contract now? And does that contract, so just let's start with where are we with the contract, kind of the details of that contract now.
Mr. Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Ewing, the addenda expires on June 30th. He's paid right now $140,000 a year per, it's amortized, spread out. Then on June 30th, then it flips over to the teacher contract. And I cannot recall what his salary was. I believe it's around $60,000, or maybe, I don't know. I think Mrs. Vicentiner is looking it up. So he has a teaching position for one more year. He is a probationary teacher, which by statute is a teacher who teaches less than 3 years, or up to 3 years. And Mrs. Vicentiner is going to give me the answer.
It's $67,981.71.
Plus, I believe he gets other stipends.
There is a hard-to-fill stipend that will be paid for this year, as well as any performance pay.
So I believe he's been paid his stipends, his performance pay. I also wanted to clarify, sorry.
We haven't actually processed the payments yet for the performance pay, so it is not unique to Dr. LaDouceur. It is pending for all teachers in the district, just so that nobody is worried or feels that they got left out.
Thank you, members of the board, Mrs. Ewing. I'm sorry. I can envision tomorrow you getting a lot of phone calls. So please put it on the record that you haven't paid some of the performance pay or the performance pay. I believe I think there was another point of clarification that I did tell you that the key that Dr. LaDouceur had was a master key to all of the schools and buildings that are part of the district, and I believe it's pro forma to ask for the master key back when an employee doesn't have need to use a master key. Is that correct? Okay. Oh, he was not asked to return his badge. Ms. Visitator just clarified for the record.
All right, so, what is, okay, so have we been told why, the third addenda that we, put together was not signed?
Members of the board, Mrs. Ewing, no, we just received word from an attorney saying he would not be signing the third addenda.
So what's the result of him not signing that third addenda? We go back to the second one, and it is where it is, right?
He's still, and even under the third, he would have been paid through the 30th of June
Okay. All right.
at $140,000.
Okay. And in that contract for the associate to the superintendent position, which was the first, that was the first contract, right? It's just so everybody's keeping track. Yeah, was there any sort of, what was the language in there if, there's always language in a contract about if an employee doesn't, if the board changes their mind or if the employer changes their mind. I know he's a first year teacher, probationary teacher, so he doesn't have those due process rights, but then in the contract itself, is there like a certain time period we have to notify him? What are those things that are in there?
President Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Ewing, I believe that Mr. Brown's going to answer that because he has it there. I believe there was a short termination period.
Yes, President Toby, members of the board, board member Ewing. In the first addendum to the contract, paragraph 5 indicates contract term, quote, "The term of the contract, which currently ends on May 22nd, 2026, shall be extended to end June 30, unless terminated before that date by either party upon giving the other party 10 days prior written notice. The term of the addendum shall be coterminous with the contract prior to amendment unless terminated earlier." And then paragraph 6 indicates termination at will, subject to giving prior written notice as set forth above, which would be paragraph 5. The board, in its sole and absolute discretion, with or without cause, in the case of termination of this addendum, the contract as it existed before this addendum was adopted will remain in force and effect.
Okay, and but we did not, he wrote us the email, I think it was on May 18th, was that the date that I had, that he was, and that wasn't for the, actually that was for the interim position, so I want to make sure I'm talking about the right thing. But we have not noticed him at all that, hey, we're firing you or whatever from that position. It's just his.
Mr. Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Ewing, no, he's not, that clause has not been exercised.
All right, thank you for the legal terminology. So that clause has not been exercised. Okay, and so really, So again, I don't understand, other than just following up with us on the questions that we had with regards to his application. I don't understand, and there's no follow-up action on the board agenda tonight or any other agenda. There's no action to really take at this point in time, even though I know we don't take action in executive session. Unless we're here to discuss his evaluation of his work while he has been associate to the superintendent, but I don't believe that that's what is agendized here. And I don't believe that that would be.
Mr. Tobey, members of the board, Mrs. Ewing, yes, you are correct.
I don't have any more. That was a lot.
Mrs. Ewing, Mrs. Bowles, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Covey. First of all, thank you, Ms. Ricks. You covered like almost everything I had written down. And I will say that, I don't know if I should say this first or after I get done saying the other things. If you're in the audience and you're trying to figure out the why, so am I. We've been told, I've been told as a board member, a lot of things, but I'll start with, the last week, I think, maybe 2 weeks, it seems like one big day. That first it was, all the principals are quitting. They're quitting because he's, this and that, and they're quitting. And I looked at that person, it was Becky Profit, and I said, what does that mean? Because you're not telling me anything. Well, a lot of them, I've talked to them, they're all quitting. Okay. And then Ms. Byzantiner came in the room. I asked if HR would come in the room, and she confirmed that there were 3 that were not.
Mrs. Bowles, I'm sorry, this is, you're venturing on executive session privilege, it's not even agendized.
This is not just executive session.
I believe this discussion was.
Okay, I'll move on. That's fine. Principal, it's been more than that person that's told me that, but I'll move on. The process was another thing that was brought up to me as a board member. And what I experienced as a process was this. On 5/17, 12:15 p.m., there was an email that went out that Dr. Ryan LaDouceur was no longer seeking the interim position. I believe that was on a Sunday, it might have been a Saturday, but I believe it was on Sunday. I responded at 3:10 stating that we had no information, that this doesn't hold any weight, like I don't know where this is coming from. And that he did not agree to step down. I didn't get an answer. Then I called Mr. Tobey at 3:18 p.m., inquired why is he saying that he's stepping down. Mr. Tobey stated that Dr. Summer has had some concerns. And then while I was talking to Mr. Tobey, he said, I'm sorry, Mrs. Bowles, I have to go because Dr. LaDouceur is calling. LaDouceur, sorry, I will get that right. Calling and I need to speak to him. And so I disconnected the phone call. And then the same day, the next day, 5/18/26, 10:57 a.m., I received an email stating Dr. LaDouceur had decided to not pursue the interim position. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that things went out before they were ever decided. The other thing, much similar to what Mrs. Ricks has already covered, that some anger issues. And I gotta tell you, most of the night I didn't sleep because I was trolling, and I usually don't do that. But I found something and I did send it to a few people. I'm sorry it was so late. But the March 14th date that has been mentioned even just a few minutes ago, all I could find on March 14th was a video, and if you don't get to see it, I would highly recommend it, of their daughter, Dr. LaDouceur's daughter. I didn't know until right before this meeting that she was actually running for a government position, some position, but it's a podcast. And you got a smart daughter, thank you for how you've raised her. I listened to it, and it was so encouraging to see the next generation being taught that way, those things. And she's a smart girl. Mom was sitting right beside her in the video. It meant a lot to me. I'm up here for one reason, only one reason, and that's the next generation. I've said that multiple times, so I won't go off on that rabbit hole. So thank you for raising a patriot. Thank you for being a patriot. Thank you for going into a classroom. I have said this in the boardroom before. It's humbling to think that all the things you have on your resume, that you would care about the next generation and be in a classroom and be okay with that. Many would be very prideful and think they were better than that. But I, again, said this to you before, I appreciate that. You do care about the next generation. Just as Ms. Rooks brought up multiple, I have them in front of me as well, multiple letters, multiple positions of different people you've worked with. I'm not going to go through all of those because Ms. Rooks did a very good job at that, but I will say that the other issue that I was told is the cabinet. I have never worked a job in my life, whether I was supervising people or I was being supervised, that I would go to my boss and say, you know what, I don't really want to work with that person, so I'm out of here if you don't get rid of them. That's another caliber to me. I don't understand that. If that really did happen and that's what I was told, I would just say don't let the door hit you in the butt. That's literally what I would say, because that is a very wrong, appalling, I think that's the word Ms. Rook used. It doesn't even compute. For some reason, we think we can do that in education, and these are people that we voted on, most of us up here, to put him in that position. I have yet to figure out the reason why. So that's why I hesitated when I started to talk, because I didn't know if I wanted to ask that first or after, because I didn't want other, things to come up maybe that happened in the last 24 hours, I don't know. I was also told that...
President Toby and Mrs. Siegel, I'm just trying to, I just wanted to clarify that we are staying on track to this agenda item, because it feels like discussions are going into the current term. And so when I asked the question of, are we evaluating his performance for the associate to the interim position, the answer was no, that's not how this is agendized, but yet we're having discussions about hearsay about his performance during his work as an associate to the superintendent, but I don't think that has anything to do with his current the status of his contract per se. That is, to me, that's performance. So I just wanted to share.
These are the issues that were brought up.
I know, and
for the reason that we took him out of his position.
Mrs. Bowles, are you going to frame this in the terms of legal advice then, or are you providing context as far as your questions,
Yes,
Mrs.
thank
Siegel?
you. Yes, these are the same things that all of us, we were brought all the same information. I, again, have yet to figure out the why. Maybe I'll get an answer tonight, I don't know.
Has been forwarded to an automated.
There was an issue brought up about something on the resume and not asking, letting someone ask your previous employer. I don't expect anybody to remember this, but we had somebody that the district was hiring, and I did have concerns, and I brought it to Dr. Summers, which fell on deaf ears, and I then brought it in the boardroom, and you can look it up. We're all televised now, that was a different HR director, and I said, does our HR call their HR and ask, are they eligible for rehire? Because something I've noticed, I have to keep in the forefront of my mind, is most, and even up here, don't understand how the school systems they work. It'll never make sense, I'll tell you that right now. But going back to that moment, I asked her that, and she said, yeah, our HR calls their HR, and okay, that's legal. And then I said it 2 more times, and the very last thing that the the prior person in that position said, well, sometimes we call their supervisor because, that's the closest person that works with them. Now, in most jobs, that sounds amazing. In fact, that would be doing double your work. I think that would be amazing if you reached out to those that work with them. However, they never reached out HR to HR. So I'll come all the way around, loop all the way around. I could say a couple different things that were issues that were brought to me, and one of them being the things on the resume and that we didn't see or whatever. That either our HR didn't do their job, or it looks like a witch hunt. So back to the addenda, Miss, I have to make sure you were there, Miss Siegel. The addenda that is not signed yet. My understanding is there were termination language in there. Can you address that? Can you tell the audience more what that addresses?
I was actually gonna ask, like, if you could read it, the addendum 3.
I mean, do we have it in our email? I'll read it.
Okay, if you got it, I don't have it with me. I don't think it did change the language that we just read to you, did it?
We added an addendum number 3, I believe, into his
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
What it was, the language, I don't have it in front of me right now. I can get it for you.
That would be great. The reason I'm asking that is because I was also told that that there was terminology in the contract that said, if you don't do this, then you will lose your salary. That actually was not in the contract. And I mentioned that to Ms. Siegel already, but I wanted everybody out in the audience and whoever's listening to know that that was the process. And the reason I had to ask is because I wasn't in the room when they made this decision. I usually don't tell people what's going on in my personal life, but I was very irritated. My daughter was being wheeled away for surgery, and I was answering questions, and thank God the teacher, there was a nurse there that her husband was a teacher, and she's like, I'm sorry, she said, you can step out. I'm like, I don't want to step out, but I have to. So I didn't get the contract because Ms. Siegel didn't know I wasn't going to be there, not because I was not doing my job. It was actually because we were told by President Toby not to contact our attorney. So that's why I want everyone to know that.
Mrs. Siegel, did you have an answer to Mrs. Bowles' question?
Mr. Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Bowles, that clause is not in the addendum number 3. It reverts, our goal, any lawyer's goal, is not to reiterate the same verbiage, but it is in the addendum number 2, or 1. The language that Mr. Brown just read to you. 1, addendum number 1 was the language. So no, there wasn't any clause in addendum number 3 to that effect.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
So what was, okay, but the addendum that was added in, was there anything in that language that stated at any point, if he signed that contract with that added addendum, if at any point he could be terminated for no reason given before June 30th when his contract is up? That's why I don't have it pulled up in front of me. I can't find it either, but I'm trying to remember off the top of my head here.
Thank you.
Ms. Siegel, could this be the part that you mentioned to Ms. Ewing, the clause that has not been exercised? I can't read my own writing.
It has not been exercised, but it's, I'll read it to you if I could. Addendum number 1 expires on June 30th, 2026. It is modified to state that it may be canceled prior to that date by either party for any reason upon giving this other party 30 days prior written notice. It may also be modified to state that, LaDouceur may be terminated for sufficient cause as provided by law. Now it's coming back to me. Dr. LaDouceur had expressed some concern, and so had this board expressed some concern that somehow a threat had been made that it could be terminated if he didn't sign this. That is actually a more generous clause in addendum 3 than was in addendum 1 and 2. Does that
So
make
it
sense?
was not in the addendum.
No, it was not.
I know that I was told by someone, Ms. Brooks was told by someone else, and if you just, I think I heard you just say Dr. LaDouceur was told, or had that. Did he bring that information to you? That's what I heard you say.
Mr. Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Bowles, Dr. LaDouceur had this contract, addendum number 3. We modified it after executive session, and I can't go into executive session, but we added that particular clause giving 30 days notice. That expanded the amount of notice he was given previously in the other 2 contracts.
Okay, thank you for that. So, the things I've seen a resume that is well overqualified to be in a classroom, very much qualified to be a superintendent of this size district. I've been in this city for, I think, 30 years. I've lost track in the district for almost 10 years. You are the kind of person I would have hired in the district for any position for that matter. I have seen the calendar. It's full. It's back to back, just as Ms. Brooks said. There's reasons we're bringing each one of these things up in case, you're trolling the internet all night, like, I don't know why, but anyway. Processes not followed, I already addressed that. I have seen the opposite, not in this situation, but in others. I have seen patterns of behavior that are so obvious. The only explanation I can give for it, if you've ever had a toddler and they have lipstick all over their face and they're hiding lipstick behind their back, and you say, did you get into the lipstick? And they say, no. It's that obvious to me. The pattern of behavior of, well, first it's this, then it's this, then it's this, then it's this. So, I have a lot of things that you accomplished, and I'm not going to go into all that because Ms. Brooks did cover that really well. So I do have a question for anyone in the room that wants to answer this. Why did we go through this process and push him out of position? Tell me why we're here. I don't care who answers that.
Well, I think, President Toby, if I may, I think that, because I was like, well, what are we having this conversation about? But the last time we left, there was a third addenda, and so you're coming back to us saying, hey, you didn't sign the third agenda, and you're letting us know in public where things stand with his employment with us and where the contracts stand. And so it's, I don't want to say it's as simple as a status update, and then certainly any other findings or clarifications from his resume. So am I correct that that's kind of the summary of this line item?
Mr. Toby, members of the board, and Mrs. Ewing, yes, it was to give, the whole purpose of this was just to update the board so that you knew the status of the contract.
President Toby, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
So I understand what you're saying, but I would argue that we are also here today, and this is on the agenda because we pushed him out. We're having to have this discussion, have this agendized. He requested it to be public because he has nothing to hide, and we're having to do it because he was pushed out. As the vote that occurred on April 23rd for interim superintendent. I did have here Ms. Susan Siegel, you brought it up, the formal complaint against that superintendent that he currently, or was under. And so I've read through it, and I think, there's some stuff in here that I don't understand. If he wanted to file a complaint, he has a right to file a complaint if he has concerns as an employee to make sure that the governing board is taking matters seriously. I know that a portion of it, he stated at the beginning of the 2023-2024 school year, the middle school experienced multiple disruptions in the learning environment at the school. These incidents were a result of failed restorative justice policies promoted by the superintendent, which the district had spent thousands of dollars outsourcing to consultants. The administrators and counselors had multiple meetings with students and parents as a result of these incidents, and the common variable that was communicated was that there had been no consequences in elementary school because of the failed implementation of restorative justice policies. That's just one notion here. So I just do not understand why we're questioning all of this. I don't understand what has transpired since April 23rd to now. It's just very questionable to me. I know we're not, you've mentioned not talking about his employment, but we're talking about his contract as associate to the superintendent, his employment history. It does seem to be a pattern of discussing him and his contract, his job, and what he's been doing and the status of everything. I have reservations, I have concerns, because when he came on in March as the associate to the superintendent, I think at the beginning of April, he had asked our superintendent, Dr. Summers, updates on things that are going on in the district, just so that he can get acclimated, he can understand what are things that I need to work on with you, as that was the partnership. When he asked us about Centennial High School, what do we need to do? What's the plan? What are we doing? Right? Like, getting ready, getting action. He was told by our superintendent, oh, you don't need to see that. You don't need to worry about that. I've got that. It's fine. I'm gonna protect you from it. You don't need to see anything. So I just really have a huge concern with the way that this has been handled since April 23rd to now.
Mrs. Ricks, I still have my question.
You gotta address President
Yeah, but,
Toby.
yeah, you can ask your question, go ahead.
I want to know why we are here and why he was taken out of that position. I want someone to say that in public, because we're here and he's put himself out there, and I highly respect that. I am Gen X, so I would have done the same thing, but just saying, I do highly respect that, because much happens behind the scenes that is just nonsense. So if somebody can give me a reason why we took him out of the position that we voted him in to have, and I don't know who that
So,
would be.
to your first question, Mrs. Bowles, we're here in executive session out in the open, one, because two board members requested an additional executive session. We've already had an executive session on this topic. This is the second request by two members of our board. That's why it's agendized. And as far as Dr. LaDouceur not being the associate, not being moving forward in negotiations for the interim superintendent, that's because the majority of the board voted to not have it that way. So that's why we're here.
So that means you're not going to give the reason why?
President Toby, there was also an email that was sent removing himself from that. So,
I think the public deserves to know the reason that
well,
this
so
came about.
Mrs. Bowles, I don't talk over you while you are talking.
I wasn't talking over you. You weren't talking when I started talking.
Mrs. Bowles,
Okay, I'll-
Mrs. Ewing, go ahead with your clarifying point, and then I would like to allow Mrs. Proudfield while she has signal.
Yes, thank you. Does this agenda, as it reads, allow the board to discuss his performance while he was a associate to the superintendent, to be able to say individually why we, if there were any concerns or that type of thing? Is it agendized as such? Because I don't believe it is.
Mr. Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Ewing, I thought it did. I beg to differ with you.
I could,
Mr. Brown has the agenda.
President Toby, members of the board, the executive session agenda notice indicates, quote, discussion, consideration, and legal advice from the attorneys of the public body for legal advice regarding the status of the contract of employee Dr. Ryan LaDouceur and Dr. LaDouceur's employment history and and to instruct attorneys for the public body on the terms of his employment pursuant to ARS 38-43103A1, A3, and A4. So it does reference Dr. LaDouceur's employment history. I think that probably is broad enough to cover that.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I'm gonna, Mr. Toby, I'm gonna jump it over to you because I know Mrs. Crawford
Okay, well,
has-
I'm not finished. Thank you. I have a couple other things I want to address. One being, if you haven't figured this out because you're smart, I'm sure you have, but I want to make sure that's very, very clear before we move forward. Going back to the cabinet, not wanting Dr. LaDouceur to work with him for whatever the reasons. Number one, I did talk to some of the cabinet prior to that. I just wanted you to know that. But if you notice that one of the cabinet ended up getting his position. Like, wow, okay, so you're saying you don't want to work with him, but now you want his position and you're going to move into that position? That doesn't feel right, that doesn't look right, that doesn't smell right. And then I did address this in the last board meeting or special meeting or whatever it was, that while I don't care at all, really the qualifications for some of this, because sometimes it just builds your head too big and you're too prideful to work with kids. But I did ask the question to Ms. Visitainer, have you ever been in a classroom? Have you ever been a principal? Have you ever, and you all heard the answer. The answer is no. Dr. LaDouceur is well overqualified to be a superintendent in our school district. So I just wanted to tie all that up and say, for those of you who haven't been in every meeting, which I would never expect you to be, those are the issues that have been brought up, and for some reason we're not getting answers tonight, or somebody's not wanting to answer. I don't know. I put it out there. You see that it's not being answered, unless somebody still wants to answer that question of why he was pushed out of his position. That's all I have. Actually, no, that isn't all I have. I apologize. I have to clear something up. So everyone that's on your phone, look at me, because I want you to hear this. Dr. LaDouceur did not say, ever, that he was in Navy SEAL. One more time. He's not a Navy SEAL. He's never said he was a Navy SEAL. The last time that I brought this up, first of all, I'm going to tell you what I saw from up here, because you see a lot. When he was standing in the podium and I said that, I could tell by the look on his face, I said something wrong. Straight up. I've already corrected this. I'm going to take 110% blame. He never said that. He never said that. So if you want to put that on social media right now, he never said that. I said that because of his qualifications, and it could have sounded like that. I appreciate that. I would take full responsibility for that. So make sure everyone's heard, that's, out there listening, what I just said. He has never said he was a Navy SEAL. So I hope that you heard that.
President Toomey,
That's all I have. Thank
I
you.
do have a legal question for Susan.
Are we allowed to, Mrs. Prophet, I don't know if her signal's going to be stable. Mrs. Prophet, are you still with us?
I am.
Okay, yeah, if we can go ahead and if you have comments or questions, and then we'll go for go-backs, okay? Go ahead, Mrs. Prophet.
Okay, I obviously been listening to all this. I am honestly very confused by the turn of this conversation, because this executive session was to receive legal advice surrounding status of contract. So I feel like it's kind of taken a turn. My questions were the status of addendum 3, had it been signed, had it not been signed? Those were the only legal questions I had. It's extremely disheartening to hear all these accusations being made. I just want to make it very clear that I have not heard anyone question Dr. LaDouceur's validity as an educator or his efficacy as an educator. This was specifically in regards to contracts regarding the interim to the superintendent position. So I don't have any legal questions. I feel like they've all been answered, and I feel like that is the scope of what this conversation is supposed to be.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Prophet. Mrs. Brooks?
Thank you. So Ms. Siegel, did Dr. Ryan LaDouceur I know you mentioned that, someone mentioned that he sent an email stating that he was no longer interested in serving as the interim superintendent. Did he actually type the email himself? Typed it up with his own hands?
Members of the board, Mr. Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Rook, I didn't type it. I don't know who typed it. Nobody at my firm typed it.
Mrs. Siegel?
I was just asking if he
Please, this is how-
typed it.
I don't,
So,
I have no idea.
okay. My other question was, I know, Mr. Toby, you asked you stated that there were 2 board members that requested this. I don't believe I did, so I don't know who requested this agenda item for tonight. Do you know which 2 board members?
I'd have to refer to our board secretary as far as what captured that, but that might require a little more research.
There's a board secretary sitting next to you. Do you have an answer? Roger? Would you happen to know who called this meeting?
Ms. Bowles, I will have to refer back to my spreadsheet if you'll allow me a few minutes to do so.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, for that. I know it was mentioned, Mr. Toby, that you stated that the reason why we're here is because the board voted that way to not move forward with him as the interim superintendent. To me, with the timeline and with the way that everything went down from that Sunday to that Tuesday special meeting, it seemed like the decision was already made. Because there were phone calls that were happening, there were discussions that were happening that I was not aware of, and a special meeting was called immediately. I know there's been mention that it was because we had graduations and whatnot, but it just seemed like the decision was already made before that vote took place on that Tuesday at 11 a.m. And then I will wait a little bit for Ashley to see if she can let us know which 2 board members.
President Toby, if I may, aren't I correct that the meeting was called as a result of the email that was provided to us? And I would assume that once that email was provided to us, if there was any sort of belief by, this is the first time I'm hearing that there is a questioning whether that email actually came from Dr. LaDouceur or not, and even though, so have we received any notification, Mrs. Vicentainer, Mrs. Siegel, that email was not his? I don't understand, and I thought that the reason why we called the special session, we received that email and we needed to make a decision rather quickly to appoint an interim, given the time frame.
Yes, that is correct as far as the time frame. Not only was there graduations, but also the stepping back of Dr. Summers in the role and the capacity. So a decision had to be made very quickly.
President Toby, Mrs. Ewing, this is the first that I've heard there was any question whether or not Mr. LaDouceur had sent, or excuse me, Dr. LaDouceur had sent the email.
Are you referring to the letter that was typed, or are you referring to a certain email?
Mr. Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Bowles, that was an email, and I'm looking it up right now to see, that was the May 18th email that was sent. It wasn't a letter, it was an email.
But are you referring to the email that contained the letter, is what I'm saying? Or is it a different email? Is that the one you're looking for?
Mr. Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Bowles, there was no letter. There was an email that is, I cut and pasted it onto, I believe I circulated it too at the time.
I know you did, so sorry. I know you did. I'm trying to clarify if it was the email that was sent out that said he was going to resign. Are we talking about the same email? Or is that going to pursue the portion?
I assume it's the same email. I don't,
I can find it if
wait a minute,
not.
just a second. I now see it. I see what you're saying. I said to Ryan, as he asked me, he said, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I want to resign, or I want to not be I want to not be considered for the interim. And I said, Dear Ryan, as you requested, understanding that I do not represent you, here's the language I propose you send to Mr. Toby with a copy to me. And he, yes, I did draft it. I take back what I just said. I just couldn't remember a month ago. Don't know if he changed some of the language, but it was in an email to him. In our conversation on May 18th, he said that he wanted to work under he wanted to continue to work under addendum number 1, and he said, I just don't know what to write. And I said, well, here's some language, but I don't represent you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
So, President Toby, if I may ask a question,
Sure.
follow-up question. So, Mrs. Siegel, you had been having conversations going back and forth with him that essentially said he didn't want to move forward with it. And so when when the drafted language came through from him, it was consistent with what he had already communicated to you, his wishes.
Mr. Toby, members of the board, Mrs. Ewing, yes, and I want to just make it perfectly clear, I never made any threat about him not being paid at all. I want to go on the record as to that. I don't believe you, in our conversations outside of executive session, any of the board members accused me of making that threat. I think that was someone else he's accused.
Right, that is correct.
But he did specifically say to me, I want to make sure that I stay employed through the 30th. And I asked him if he was going to resign from his teaching contract, and he said he thought he was, and I said, well, why don't you do that in a separate email so that we keep the issues very clear.
I guess I'm just confused by this then, because why did he not sign the addendum, and why does he now have an attorney?
Mr. Toby, members of the board, and Mrs. Brooks, I have no idea why he didn't sign, and I have no idea why he now has an attorney.
Thank you, Mrs. Siegel. So I do want to keep this and provide some context regarding the contract, and maybe we'll also answer some of the other fellow board members' questions. So I appreciate the courage that Dr. LaDouceur has to put this into open session and to have this discussion in public. For weeks, I've been asked why I accepted his withdrawal from consideration of the interim superintendent. Until now, I've remained silent out of respect for his wishes to stay out of the political limelight. In light of any potential future employment opportunities he may have been pursuing, even when being publicly criticized, I stood by my agreement with Dr. LaDouceur. Tonight, I want to provide some context to clearly outline my concerns and explain what I learned following the April 23rd board vote, much of which I was not privy to until following that vote, and most of which I was not privy to until I was voted in as president. Some of this may be repetitive, but it's important that the full context be shared regarding this contract. Leadership transitions are among the most consequential responsibilities entrusted to a governing board. When Dr. Summers announced his resignation on February 18th, our duty as a board became clear: to ensure stability, maintain public trust, and to identify leadership capable of guiding Peoria Unified through a significant period of change. From the outset, there were issues of transparency with the process. The community and I questioned the unusually short 3-day application window for the associate to the superintendent role, which is a critical position. After significant debate on our March 5th study session, the board finally agreed to extend the window through the weekend. As I said, I've never been working or employed or supervising any job where there's been such a compressed timeline for a role of this importance. So that's what struck me as really odd from the get-go. Dr. LaDouceur appeared strong on paper and came highly recommended by Mrs. Rooks. who along with Mrs. Profit conducted interviews and presented him as a finalist to the entire board. The role was originally described as an associate position to support transition and assist in the search of an interim superintendent as outlined in his job description. Over the following weeks, that understanding shifted, first to allowing him to apply for the interim role himself, and then to beginning negotiations to appoint him as interim role. I trusted the vetting that was done by Mrs. Rosa and Mrs. Profit at the time, which is why I agreed to move forward with negotiations on April 23rd. What I learned after that fundamentally changed my perspective. It was not until after our vote to initiate negotiations that I learned that Dr. LaDouceur sent his resume directly to former President Rooks ahead of Dr. Summers even announcing his resignation that same day. Dr. Summers announced his resignation that was 2 weeks before any position was publicly posted within the district. I've seen the email and I know this for a fact. This issue was not if this is technically allowed. It was whether it was fair, open, and trustworthy to both the board and to the public. When a candidate submits a resume directly to the board president and no one else before the job is publicly posted, and the posting period is then extremely short, and only 3 applicants are in to be considered, the full board deserves to know that before being asked to move forward, that the application was submitted previously to any announcement. Without that disclosure, it creates an appearance that the process may have been less than open than it should have been, which damages public confidence even if no intended wrongdoing was taking place. Shortly after becoming president, I began hearing significant concerns from the cabinet level as well as the administration level about Dr. LaDouceur's leadership style. They described issues with collaboration, communication, and relationships between the district personnel and leadership. Several expressed serious reservations about the district's direction if he were to assume the top role. While disagreement among leaders is normal, the consistency and the breadth of these concerns were impossible to ignore. I was told of repeated instances of tardiness, failure to attend meetings he was responsible for, and in one-on-one conversations with cabinet and staff, I learned that if Dr. LaDouceur had become successfully the interim superintendent, there would be no cabinet, that all the entire cabinet would have resigned and accepted employment elsewhere. When I raised these concerns directly with Dr. LaDouceur, because that's how I operate directly, I was troubled with his lack of concern. He suggested that the district might need to be taken, quote, down to the studs, and dismissed the significance of losing the entire cabinet, deputy superintendents, and senior leadership at key schools. No one, no matter how talented, can run this district alone or sit at an empty table off to the side. Our students and staff and families need stability, not disruption for disruption's sake. I also voted to select an alternate interim superintendent because I did not feel I had been given clear or complete information from Dr. LaDouceur about his decision to halt the search for a deputy superintendent, which he was responsible for. At first, he explained to me that there were further investigations he wanted to do within the Educational Services Department before selecting a deputy, citing hurt feelings and lack of communication within that department. I advised him that to me, that screams that the department is in need of leadership, not delayed leadership. Dr. LaDouceur later told me the following week that it wasn't him that halted the search, that it was all Dr. Summers, and that he halted the search to undermine him. Both accounts cannot be true, which caused me to pause if, as president and a board member, could I rely on someone to be honest moving forward with information given this direct experience with 2 different stories. There was additional information that I received that Dr. LaDouceur had also been less than truthful with a cabinet member. After the April 23rd vote, these additional concerns regarding his prior employment started to surface, with multiple employees independently describing what they experienced, that they were deeply troubled, and that was strikingly consistent with the pattern we were starting to see here in Peoria Unified. They reported issues ranging from poor communication, lack of leadership, and behavior they felt created a hostile, harmful, and bad student environment. A former board member from his prior district even wrote the current board, submitting his own concerns about the administration. Taken together, these accounts revealed a pattern that closely aligned with the challenges we were seeing here in Peoria Unified. Serious questions that I couldn't ignore. Dr. LaDouceur also told me that he left his prior district because the superintendent asked him to do something illegal. He did not explain what it was, and he didn't elaborate whether he reported it or not to law enforcement. Those questions remain unanswered. When trying to gain any type of clarity on the situation regarding his employment and contract and issues that were being raised, prior employers on his application remarked, "Do not contact." I understand, for example, if you're applying for a position elsewhere that the prior employer that you come from, you say "do not contact." Not every single one on your entire resume. North Wasco County School District, do not contact. Department of Defense Education, do not contact. Oregon City School District, do not contact. Pearson Education Online, do not contact. United States Navy, Department of Defense, do not contact. Wenstow Foreign Language School in China, do not contact. Hillsborough School District, do not contact. How can a candidate be evaluated if we're prohibited from contacting any of their prior employers to learn more about them? Lastly, just prior to the April 23rd vote to begin negotiations with Dr. LaDouceur, it turns out that a prerequisite of his contract, which converts, as Mrs. Siegel said, on June 30th to a teacher contract, that his teaching certificate was suspended April 18th, just prior to the vote, due to deficiencies. Because this is a prerequisite of his contract, it does call into question the contract moving forward when it reverts back to a teacher. Any one of these issues alone might not have changed my vote. Taken together, they made it impossible for me to have supported his appointment. My decision was not about personalities, politics, it was about leadership, trust, transparency, and the long-term health of Peoria Unified. If Dr. LaDouceur chooses to remain with Peoria Unified in a teaching capacity, I would ask that he sign a consent form allowing his prior districts to release all records related to his employment so we can fully determine what is accurate and what is not. I remain committed to working with our current interim superintendent to provide steady leadership, restore confidence, and support our employees, and keep our focus where it belongs, which is on student success. And that's all I have to say on this matter.
President Toby, the Arizona Department of Education website, as of today, still has his certificate for standard professional principal pre-K through 12. The expiration date is 10-2037. I will also state 5 days for extending for a interview process for submitting for the associate superintendent position. That was back in March. I will say it's definitely longer than a 24-hour notice for a special meeting. That was an appointment of Mrs. Vicentiner when there was no process at all to be said for that. That name appeared on the agenda with no process. I will also state that he is not responsible for the removing of the, or stopping the position of the Deputy Superintendent of Educational Services, because at the time, he did not have in his contract the legal authority to do that as the associate to the superintendent, and that authority ultimately led to Dr. Summers. So yes, that would make sense that Dr. Summers would have the final say, as under his contract, he has the authority, and Dr. Ryan LaDouceur does not. So I'm just, it seems to be a lot of, in my opinion, gossip from people who are not actually giving truthful, honest answers about Dr. Ryan LaDouceur.
President Toby, if I may.
Good, Mr. Jones.
I'm sorry.
I said go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So, part of the job of an associate superintendent, especially once it was announced at his first meeting that he was with us when Dr. Summers stood here and talked about what he would be working on. You made the statement, we are so looking forward to you being the interim superintendent, even though there had been no agreement to that was prior to contracts and that.
I stated that he would be a good candidate
Please
for
allow Mrs.
interim.
Ewing to finish.
Okay, but she's quoting me incorrectly from that meeting.
I will allow you
Okay.
an opportunity to correct the record.
Correction of quote, candidate for the interim. So, knowing that one of the main responsibilities of anyone who would be coming into a superintendent position, their main relationship to build is with all board members. I have heard from mainly Mrs. Rose, I have heard so much detail about conversations that you've had extensive conversations with her, lots of different detail. In your entire time that you were here, you had one conversation with me, and I asked you to meet with me, and in that in that conversation, I told you that my greatest concern at that time, because Dr. Hernandez had announced that she was leaving and she was leaving earlier, I told you that my greatest concern was that, I'm gonna continue on, but my greatest concern was that what's happening in that department, and I'd like to know your thoughts. And in that conversation, then you said, let me show you what I've been working on, which was the thematic analysis. Let me show you what I've been working on, and then you'll be able to, maybe some of this will be able to answer the questions. And you went through kind of the process that you've done and the themes and so forth, and that you were coming up with. I asked you during that conversation, will the board be getting this presentation of this analysis? You talked about it at one of our meetings that you were working on that. You said at that time, you said, I don't know if the board's going to get it or how this is going to be disseminated or when this is going to happen. I know that I've never seen, so as far as producing something as part of your job description, I've never seen that. I know you were compiling it because you showed me it, but I've never seen the results of that. There was a meeting that I asked for, just so to go on to another scenario. There was a regular meeting at like midnight. I requested that the district and you come forward with a plan for how we are replacing that position, or when I say position, the deputy of superintendent of academics. What's the timeline for it, or how are we shifting around those responsibilities? And at the end of the meeting, and I got a second, and at the end of the meeting, you came up to me and you said, you know, I should have said, and I could provide that information to you in a Friday report. And I said, that would be great. I don't know what's going on with that position, and she's leaving before our next meeting, and I don't know what's going on with that position. And I said, but I'd love to get a Friday report update. I never saw a Friday report update in regards to that. I know that I came and asked you 2 different times at the meetings, hey, I'd really like to follow up with you, no problem, I want to continue these conversations. I said it to you right over there at the end of a board meeting, and you said, I'll put it on my email, and I'll make sure to connect with you. So that was twice. So it goes back to, what is the primary responsibility of an interim superintendent? They need to build a relationship with all board members, because the interim superintendent is hired and reports to all board members. I had one conversation during your entire time that you were with us, and I don't know how many times you reached out to the rest of the board members. I didn't have any of those conversations, but I had real concerns about that there was no relationship with the entire board, and the entire board is the one who is the only one who can hire and fire the superintendent. So.
President Toby.
Just 1 second, I want to make sure Mrs. Rooks is able to clarify the quote. Were you able to clarify it, or do you want an opportunity?
Yeah, the quote was not that I was excited that he would be a good candidate for an interim. I had stated I think you would be a good interim superintendent. So I just think that that's, that he would be a good interim superintendent candidate. I don't understand why that's so difficult and why that's so wrong to say.
Thank you for that clarification. Mrs. Bowles, go ahead.
Just for the record, because we have to do that now, put everything out there. I've never had a conversation with him, never. I will tell you that he came to the interview when Ms. Prophet, and Ms. Rooks, we gave them permission to interview, some of which people on both sides of me referred other people that they knew for that position. We gave them that authority, they did their job, and what came back was he's the only one that had a plan when he interviewed. Wanted to show that plan. I have no reason to try to defend you. Maybe call it discernment, maybe I'm a little older and I can see some things that some don't, I don't know. I got text and he didn't get back. Do I think he's not, have a relationship with the board? No, I actually know other things, like I was looking up last night, trying to find that March 14th thing, and all I found was his daughter running for a position that I can't even remember, council something, but just an amazing presentation for a very young girl. And that takes a very good parents. I had very good parents, and I appreciate that because they're being raised with my grandbabies, and that I appreciate. Your resume speaks volumes. I said that before. I'd be a little leery if you had a really good relationship with any of us up here, since if you were going to be on the superintendent, you'd be working for us. Because there's a lot of different, scenarios of what that looks like. Even now, I've upset some people saying that, but that's the truth. There's some very weird, the cabinet thing I'm very bothered by. I'll leave that alone, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, if your employees are saying, I'm gonna leave, if you keep this person, then slip into that position, I'm not sure what kind of character that is, but, so just for the record, I haven't had long conversations. One text, I think, one that he even responded to. So just to clear that, I haven't had, a lot of conversations. I was very okay with we've changed roles up here so many times. Ms. Rooks and Ms. Profit, I was confident in them doing the job, so we didn't have to take more time away, do some of that. So that's all I have, thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowles. And as discussed, the mayor, I think is right, with any employee that attends executive session regarding anything to do with their contract or employment, to provide them an opportunity to comment. So I would like to provide Dr. LaDouceur an opportunity to provide comment.
Good evening. So I want to go through a timeline, and then I'll touch on a few things at the end, and then go from there. On Sunday, May 17th, the school district attorney, Susan Siegel, called me, one of multiple people that day, and threatened me that if I didn't resign and go away quietly, there would be issues. If I was to go away quietly, then I would get paid through the remainder of my contract as long as I stayed quiet. I heard that from the board attorney and from 2 other members that same very day. I communicated clearly to the attorney that I didn't understand why this is happening. Mind you, the first text I got in the morning was 6:30 in the morning on a Sunday. I asked clearly and could communicate that I did not understand why this is happening because I had done nothing but act in the best interest of the district and community. I again asked for clarification and what the cause was for this, or if any corrective action would be taken. If I had not been doing my job correctly, let me know. Let me make adjustments. Let me do the right thing. Nothing was given. No reason, no explanation from 3 separate people that day. The only explanation that was ever given to me by one of the board members was that you have too much integrity to play politics at this level. That is the only thing I have been given an explanation for. When I once again asked for clarification and if any corrective measures could be taken, I was given the answer, just leave quietly and everything will be okay. On Monday, May 18th, an email was sent out to the entire district saying I was stepping down and being replaced by Ms. Talia Vicentainer. Before a vote ever happened, before any communication ever took place, that was blasted out to the entire district. That very next morning, before a vote was even taken, you guys had the person already lined up and ready to go. Once again, no explanation was ever given to me as to why. Just random, ambiguous nonsense. I also want to point out clearly that that email was never, ever written by me. It was written, timestamped, and comes from the law firm that is represented that our attorney represents, and I was told to pass it along to you and copy them back on it, which you were fully aware of and sat up there and said you had no idea 30 minutes ago. At no point have I ever signed anything, willingly stepped down, or said I would do any of this. I was threatened and given 24 hours to get it done, or else there would be issues. On a Sunday morning. It says a lot about some of the people in this room. When that email got sent out Monday, that already had a plan and who was going to replace me, that got blasted out to everyone, like I stated, before a vote even occurred. To this date, I have never signed anything saying I would step down, and I've never been given any answers as to the reason why. Lies. That is what they've been, of lies. I was simply told by 3 separate people on that Sunday, leave quietly and there won't be any issues. To this date, if anybody that works for this district could have stepped up and gone into this role, anyone could have. And I did, because I believe in service. And I believe in service for the greater good. And to serve my country and my people in the capacity that I can. And since that day, I have been lied about, smeared. There have been multiple fake accounts that have coordinated with some people, else people in this room sitting in certain positions. IP addresses are not that hard to track. Not that hard at all. And the people who have created those lies and those false accounts and who have been nothing but defamation and spread lies, don't worry. That's getting tracked and figured out. All of it. All of it. As a result of me stepping up to fulfill this role, as everyone in this room could hear, there was no reason given. None whatsoever. It's the biggest game of like being a middle schooler. Well, he said, she said, he said. No reasons whatsoever. However, I've had fake accounts that people have made that have lied about me, spread rumors. I've had letters showing up at my house threatening me now, that my children have gotten, that they have picked up at their door, making threats to me and my family. That if I don't go away, they're going to go to the press. If I don't be quiet, issues are going to happen. To my own home, my own children, they have gotten those letters. They have picked them up. On one of those fake accounts, and I hope some of the people here are listening, one of those fake accounts that got mentioned, oh, he turned off his LinkedIn. He turned off his LinkedIn back in May. You're right, I did. Because people in this room who were putting together and finding out, like I said, IP addresses, evidence, people talk, it's not too difficult. They were calling former colleagues of mine and harassing them, threatening them. So in the last couple months, when anyone in this district could have stood up and applied for this job, and I did, I have been threatened. I have been lied about. People have come to my home. People have dropped off letters threatening me and my family. I have had former colleagues tracked down and harassed and intimidated and threatened. It's unacceptable. You guys want to bring up stuff from my past district? It's the same thing. It ain't get said today. I will happily say it. That superintendent hated me because she failed to mandatory report a kid being abused. The same scenario. Kind of interesting, huh? She failed to report a child being abused that was duct taped to a chair and beaten and hit around. And guess what? That was her CFO who did it. So it's another example of we're going to keep this quiet. We're going to sweep it under the rug. We've got issues going on, but nobody's saying anything. And I did say something. I stood up for what was right. And just like I got brought up earlier, the gun situation, that I confided in you because you were a police officer, because I had no say over it. We didn't follow policy. We didn't follow procedure. We made that disappear. Public still doesn't even know we had a gun on campus. A gun that's not accounted for. That's for me when everything started to switch. That's when people started to, well, how much does this guy maybe know? Let's start to undercut him more. Let's start to push him out. Like I started to say, I had no problem. I will sit there and listen to what any of you got to say. Because it's lies. It is lie after lie. Please look at me when I'm speaking. It's lie after lie.
It is not a lie. It is not a lie what I say.
Mrs. Ewing, this is not a response. We're not allowed to respond. This is him providing a statement in executive session. Thank you.
I would ask that the employees of this school district and the people that work and live in this community, ask yourselves, do you want people to lead this district who have integrity and do the right thing and will stand up even when people lie about them consistently? Or are you going to fold it over to people who will lie, not tell the truth, cover their own selves, cover out for others, to protect institutions, to protect people? Instead of protecting children, it's my turn to speak, please. Instead of protecting children and doing what's best for them, because that's what's happened. That's 100% what's happened. And those of you that are part of it, you are just as complacent. You are just as guilty. So I go back and repeat myself and end on that. In this district, do we want to be led by integrity and people who do the right thing, even when they have to stand up here and get blasted by people and lied about? Or are we just going to fold and let it keep going how it is, and we're going to keep hiding things and just doing what we do? I stand on my integrity. I stand on me, who I am as a man, and I would challenge any one of these people who keep lying about me. Stop hiding behind fake accounts. Come out, say the truth if you got something to say. If not, stop, because you're hurting this district and you're hurting this community. I stand on my integrity and who I am as a man. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Dr. LaDouceur. It is 7:49 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and motion to exit executive session.
I will second.
Mrs. Cuthbert, we have a motion made by myself, seconded by Mrs. Ewing. If you can run us through a voice vote, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Russ. Thank you for the correction.
Mrs. Proudfoot, are you still with us to cast your vote?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
President Toby?
Yes.
Ms. Bowles?
Yes.
Mrs. Ewing?
Yes.
Mrs. Rooks?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion passes 5 yeas. Executive session is now adjourned. Please allow us a 10-minute recess to reset and get the regular board session set up and for